I'm Lisa Snyderman, and this is Conversations on Creating to Heal. And today I'm really excited to be talking with Kurun from New York, New York. She is a producer, director, writer, and she also created a web series called Surprisingly Complicated. And hers is a story of parenting twin boys with autism and the many trials that come along with that. So welcome, Kurun.
Thanks for having me, Lisa.
Yeah, of course. So I'm intrigued. I want to hear more about this. You said you're a producer. I said you're a producer, writer, and director. And I wanted to see if maybe you had a mission or a purpose for why you're doing what you do.
I wanted to tell our story about raising our twin boys in a form that was probably the easiest way for me to express. And it's basically based on true stories and true things that happen with my boys. And I think the best way to storytell that would be through video and sound.
That's great. Yeah, I think now I'm more intrigued because I want to hear what your story is that led up to this. So everybody has some sort of a story, and people go through life events, whether it's illness or something unexpected or a life challenge. And so for you, what was it that you went through? How did it transform you? And how did it, bring you to writing a web series?
My husband and I received the diagnosis for our boys with them having autism when they were 15 months old. And I just think that we treated it like they didn't have autism. We treated them like regular children. And we found that the different things that we went through that you do with typical children, like, soccer practice or just going to IKEA, ended up being really disastrous because we kind of ignored the diagnosis. And I just wanted to share that with kids and parents, because I still think that we're glad we did those things that we did so that the boys can acclimate to our world and understand it. But at the same time, it's like, how do you share that story? How do you tell those stories? I mean, I would tell other parents and they would just sit intrigued and they'd want to know more stories. Like, how did it go when you went out to, when you drove 48 hours to Florida or whatever? And it's just one of those things that I wanted to share because I think it's very relatable to diagnosed children and parents raising diagnosed children and even typical parenthood.
Yeah, so you're saying you treated them just like, raising a neurotypical child. Right. So that was something that was hit and miss? There were certain things that they would acclimate and other things that were maybe different because of how they process or sensory perception. And, people who may be not familiar with autism, you might want to describe a little bit about what this is like.
I mean, it's almost like they're not comfortable in their body. And there's a lot of sensory issues and there's a lot of movements. There's barely any verbal cues because my boys were nonverbal. So it was just, it was hit or miss if we went out in public anywhere or if we went to the doctor or the dentist. It was definitely hit or miss. And we had to try all kinds of things. And I thought, we would be able to share those stories.
Yeah. Did you also have a community that you could turn to?
15 years ago, when you Googled autism, there was mud baths that would remove the toxins from their body.
Yeah.
And, and there was protocols, dietary and stuff, but nothing to really, it was fairly, uncharted territory. So we didn't have anything to go on. And so we just kind of went our way as if, well, what would you do with a normal 2-year-old? Or what would you do with a normal 3-year-old? We did it, and it was really challenging, but again, I think very relatable and funny.
Yeah. So when you started creating the web series, how many years after the boys had autism?
I started writing all this 6 years ago. So they were 10 or 9 years old when I started writing the stories, when I decided to just put it on paper.
And so was this something that you had already been expressing in before? You're a writer, you're a producer, you're a director. Did that come out of this experience, or was that something you'd already been doing?
No, I had never done it before. And I just said, let me write my experiences. And I wrote 13 screenplays and 13 adventures, and I never had felt better. It was, even the fact of just, you know, putting it on a piece of paper with the intention of sharing eventually, I don't know, it's almost like I was able to check something off a bucket list or something. It was just something I wanted to share with people.
Yeah, and so two things. What were the boys' reactions? And then also, did they play themselves, or do you get people to play them?
The boys' reactions were only after, because they're visual learners. They and also they like to hear music and everything. The post production was probably where their reaction was, where they pointed and they laughed and they danced with it or rocked back and forth to the music. So I would say that they were pleased with the outcome. They don't play themselves because they really are not great at following instructions. So
Sure.
I found two children on the autism spectrum that play my twin boys. Two really well-behaved, excellent boys, both with autism. So mommy and daddies were on the set the entire time. They did an incredible job, really.
That's so great, you know, and it's such a neat thing, I'm sure, so that people can have both role models, right? Somebody to
Yeah.
identify with.
Yes.
That's great. Can you talk a little bit about the impacts that your web series is having? What kinds of reactions have you received?
Oh, it has been amazing. We have been compared to like Atypical and The Good Doctor, because those are the shows that are up right now, and none of which use autistic individuals in their, you know, in their cast. So, and then the other thing is the emails that we've received, the thank yous and how relatable it is, and how please, you know, keep making more. It's been really overwhelming. We've been on TV. We've been featured on local New York news and The Mighty. Several articles in bloggers have blogged. So it's been really amazing to me. I just didn't think that having twin boys with autism would be so interesting, you know.
No,
But
no, I would think it would be very interesting, but maybe not knowing your path, right? That was going to be in front of you. It's such a neat story. Thank you for sharing. What's your next steps? Are you going to continue to make more of these web
Yes,
series?
we have 3 episodes. Episode 4 is up in 2 months. I just have to get, it's the time that we put IKEA in lockdown. So you know, we're setting up for that. Otherwise, yeah, I'm gonna just keep making them. I just think you know, waiting for Hollywood to pick it up, I just think it's not part of my story. My story is I have to share it, and if it's, you know, if I have to fund it myself, I will. But it's just 13 stories I need to tell parents to watch if they want to feel comfortable and okay with their diagnosis. I mean, I just think that's my job right now.
Well, I want to invite you now to share a little piece. Now I'm really wanting to see this.
The first episode, we get kicked out of our psychiatrist's office because they're almost behaving too autistic in the waiting room, so the doctor never wants us to come back. And in the meantime, one of our boys has a permanent twitch because of the medication they're on. So my husband and I decide to maybe try to medicate through marijuana, medical marijuana, in an illegal state. We're in New York City. So we get out and we find someone to sell it to us. We make hash, we administer it to our child. It's all very risky, but it ended up killing the twitch the minute we gave it to our child. And we continued to give it to him for 6 months until the twitch completely subsided. So I think it was successful. I don't recommend parents doing it, but it was just something out of desperation, because that twitch would have been just one more thing my son would have had to deal with on a daily basis. So it has to do with healing through cannabis. It has to do with what two parents will do to get it, or to help their child. And it's also funny because it's a typical day in a typical family's life in a minivan.
He said that marriages where there's a kid with autism involved rarely make it. You guys are coping by smoking. I think that's beautiful, man.
It's difficult when autistic children don't speak and can't tell us the meds are not working. Oh, and I also no longer accept your insurance, so payment will need to be in full.
Type in how to make hash. Welcome to our lab.
You can get a box from a head shop.
So they're too autistic?
They're just, surprisingly complicated.
This is a realistic look at
Right.
some of what happens. It's not done as to poke fun so
No.
much as it is the inanity and the comedy that ensues with
Yes.
kinds of events, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
that is, you know, an honest look, it sounds like, at
Right,
young
right. And I
kids
think,
with
and I
autism.
think,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think laughter is healing too.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
I mean, just, you know, just the parents bickering with, you know, marijuana in the car and the kids in the back seat. I think it's kind of silly, but it's something that happened. And I just think there's healing through laughing too. And I think that was really important to portray that. But we always laughed. My husband and I always laughed at ourselves through this journey.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you for sharing some of your journey today. Is there anything that you might want to leave the viewers with? Maybe some life lessons or something you've learned on your journey with creativity and healing?
For me, it came to me in the form of write it down and share it. And I think you absolutely should do that, whether you're a caregiver or whether, you know, you have an illness yourself. I think the more sharing you do about it and the more talking about it that you do and the more people that you affect with your story, I think the more important it is. It's almost like your duty to do it. And nothing's made me more happy and feel better than parents, you know, writing to me from YouTube and telling me that's my family on the screen. And the fact that I've shared it and made someone feel okay with their autistic child, it's even better for me.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on to Conversations on Creating to Heal.
Thank you so much for having me, Lisa. Thanks.